6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1. Powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
And good afternoon, Vancouver. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Giuseppe Ganci, and I'm here in studio with my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor. Hello, Darren. How are you?
Hello. I'm excellent. How are you, Giuseppe?
You know what? I'm good. I'm feeling optimistic. I'm feeling proud. There's news just starting to hit the social media airways, if you call them airways now, in regards to the Alberta model and the overdose crisis. And Alberta is reporting a decline in overdose numbers, one of the only provinces in Canada to actually be doing that. And, I kind of feel good about it because, they have really bought into the Recovery Capital Conference that we organized for now 5 years. It was hosted in Alberta last year by the government. And they've really taken this approach, recovery-oriented approach to the overdose crisis, where the message constantly is, you can recover, we will support you, we will help you, we will provide treatment beds available. They've spent, lots of money on not just creating new spaces for people to get well, but they've also upped the amount of money given to service providers so they can provide better care, hire more staff, get people with more degrees in there. And, in the province of British Columbia, it's still like $35 a day to provide addiction treatment. In Alberta, it's $105 or $150 per day. So you can do a lot with that. And, you can't even put a dog in a kennel for $35 a day. And you have to bring your own food to the kennel if you put your dog in it. And here we're supposed to provide addiction treatment. So Alberta's really taken a innovative approach. It's called the Alberta model. I'm really pro the Alberta model because of their support of the evidence. They don't read Twitter and create policy that's friendly to Twitter. They actually create policy that's saving lives. And so, yeah, it's on the news now. Alberta overdoses have dropped 44% compared to other days.
This is like a really big deal.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, these have been numbers that have only increased ever since the onset of the overdose crisis per month.
Yeah.
Always a bigger number. And we've seen a decrease, a proven decrease. You say they, Alberta's followed the evidence. Was there specific studied evidence for them to pursue this model, or was this them taking a leap, a risk, and saying, let's do this, and have evidence of either an increase or a decrease?
So the leap and courage was to not follow, fanatic advocates who are like, everybody needs safe supply. Some people do need safe supply. You can get safe supply in Alberta, but not everybody, and so they decided to not go, and they've been attacked by, I'm not going to say their name. Well, they've been attacked by a lot of people. And, there's this tunnel vision that's been created in BC, and the only solution to the overdose crisis is safe supply. And then they ripple that with attacks on abstinence-based treatment isn't evidence-based. Well, you don't hear that in Alberta. In Alberta, you hear it's all evidence-based, and we're going to support all pathways, all the way from abstinence to harm reduction. And there's been this slight, consumption sites are available in Alberta. They're recovery oriented consumption sites, just like they are in Switzerland. And they have this idea, and like no one's getting arrested in Alberta for using drugs. They have a recovery oriented response to when you get caught using drugs. It's called the Portuguese model. Like they actually investigated the Portuguese model and implementing it. You know, they have this way of actually, you know, providing healthcare. And they've been doing it, and this is the results of it. People in Alberta on the streets know that their province is there to support them to get, you know, a better way of life.
But there has yet to be a decrease in the overdose numbers. So this would be the first to be able to study and link. Right?
I'll tell you now, it's not going to be celebrated, and that's the problem in Canada. It's not going to. They're going to get attacked.
Single department and resource, whether you're
one's going to be. There's no balloons. There's no congratulations. Premier Jason Kenney is an unsung hero in the overdose crisis. And I got attacked for saying that a long time ago on social media. It's like me and him had a conversation. He's listened to our conversations. He's like, I love the idea of Recovery Capital. We're going to do this conference. He had 1,000 people show up. Indigenous leaders from across the province of Alberta, actually from across Canada, showed up. You know, people want to have faith in their people that they can overcome, you know, addiction. And it's winning in Alberta, and the Alberta model is winning. It's not going to be celebrated, though. It's not. And that, I want everyone listening, like, think about it. Okay? Stop overdose signs everywhere. The hashtag gets blurted out everywhere. And then, you know, like the major players in the safe supply movement are not going to be looking at Alberta on how they're doing it. They're going to attack Alberta on how they're reducing overdoses. Absolutely. So I just want you to think about that insanity. The insanity. Overdose Awareness Day is in a couple days. And instead of celebrating Alberta's it's not triumph yet. Like they're still got lots of work to do. But instead of celebrating and investigating and finding out, how did you do that? How did you even save one life? No, they're going to get attacked. And it's, you know what, Minister Mike Ellis, and to all the other people within the Ministry of Health and the Minister of Addictions and Mental Health in Alberta, you know, congratulations. And you know what, I've sat at the roundtables in BC, I've sat at roundtables in Alberta, and they are different. They are so different. And more will be revealed. More will be revealed. So Google the Alberta model, hashtag the Alberta model, find the article, share it, retweet it, you know, share the message. Recovery can happen. It can. Alberta's proving it. And that's what we talk about on this show. We talk about recovery and all pathways to recovery. And I'm just glad that I think I have a little, well, you too, we all have a piece of that solution that's happening in Alberta. They listen to our lived experiences. They listen to opiate addicts in recovery talk about how they recovered, and they're implementing that policy across the province. And it's working today. And that's all we got is today. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio, 100.5 FM, Vancouver Co-op Radio. Thanks for giving us some time to talk about the truth when it comes to the overdose crisis. And we support all of our listeners by trying to give them information that, you know, is through our lived experience. We're powered by New West Recovery, last door in Westminster House, located in New West, BC. And, you know, we're going to talk about Recovery Day later. We got 2 guests on the show, and we bring experts on the show to talk about, you know, something that has to do with addiction and recovery. And today's an interesting topic. Darren, who are we talking recovery with today?
Yes, today we get to talk recovery with Jeanette Yoffe. There she is. Welcome to the show, Janet.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, I'm just going to qualify you here for a second. This is the executive director and founder of the Celia Center, which is a nonprofit organization that offers free support groups. You are also the founder of Yoffe Therapy, yoffetherapy.com. You have worked as a psychotherapist, foster care social worker, clinical director, trainer for the Los Angeles Child and Family Services, Department of Mental Health for parents, social workers, and therapists on adoption and foster care challenges. Parenting, the impact of pre-adoption trauma, grief, loss, open adoption. I mean,
it's a lot.
Plus,
it's a
you are also your personal experience of foster care and adoption. So I feel so appreciative of our show when we get to talk with guests that are not only professionals in their field, but experienced in their own personal lives, and have dedication towards helping those that are going through the struggle and need that sort of reach of hope and actual proven support and help. And here you are. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've been doing this for 20 years, and it wasn't my first career choice. It wasn't. I wanted to be an actress. Why? Because I was always adapting to everything around me. I had an imposed identity because I was adopted. And I really struggled a lot of my life with who I was, where am I going, and where do I belong? So being an actress, I could have the script of who I am. And then I left acting to pursue psychology because I realized how many children were in foster care and were adopted across the country. And it was shocking to me. And so I really wanted to give back because I felt that I was provided with a healthy upbringing. Yes, it had its challenges, but I was one of the lucky kids. There's a lot of children in foster care who don't.
So there's a good lead in here for me. I hope we break some stigmas. I hope we create compassion. I hope we create some understanding. But as someone who grew up brother and sister, biological parents, well off, had never had to want for anything, I still found myself in treatment for addiction with someone who was adopted with beautiful, loving, caring parents, and someone also sitting next to us that got just the abusive treatment through foster care. So there doesn't seem to be an absolute, but whether you were adopted at birth or foster care system at birth or adopted as a teenager or never have been adopted, what is it that across the board an individual does experience, like whether they got a great upbringing or not? What is it that's shared amongst those experiences?
Well, the separation from your biological family, your family of origin, can cause a lot of inner turmoil for that person. To be separated from your ancestry, we inherit an abandonment. We inherit an abandonment. And if you are not treated well in childhood and have experienced abuse, neglect, or witnessed domestic violence, that can cause trauma. And that trauma can go dormant because what children don't want to feel pain. They're going to suppress it. They're going to push it down. But what happens is what we resist persists and it incubates and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And when we don't have someone outside of us, our caregivers, acknowledging the pain, and in the world of adoption and foster care, they coin it as the term called the primal wound. It's a primal wound because it happened in childhood. And there's actually a book.
And is this unconscious, like this, as you say, inherited abandonment? Is that something that happens unconsciously before the child even knows that they were adopted? Or
so in understanding how the brain works, the first 3 years, we have implicit memory, and memories get stored in the unconscious and in the body. So for many years, I had this longing for my birth mother. I formed an attachment to her. Babies form attachments to their mothers in the womb. And then what happens, they're born, and there's a plan for an adoption, and that child is then separated and placed in the arms of another caregiver, a potential adoptive parent, but that baby's body is recognizing there's a huge life transition happening, because all that they know is the birth mother's smell, her voice, her rhythms, that there's a fault, a fracture that occurs. And now the child's this infant is now in a whole new experience that they now have to adapt to. And a lot of adoptees feel that they're not adoptees, they're adaptees. They're always adapting to what everyone else wants for them because it's survival. It's about survival. I need someone, because our brains are wired for attachment. So when that early attachment is fractured, that sets the blueprint, and it gives me goosebumps, for the blueprint for the rest of your life of relationships. Well, if I attach, I could potentially also, the yin and yang is I can also lose here. So there's this push and pull in relationship. I'll only bring you so close because I don't know if I can trust. This is finite. This is secure. And so that's where the inner turmoil and the suppression of the anxiety of being in an attachment, being in relationship, the trust that has been severed. It's hard for adoptees to really feel secure. They need a lot of validation. Even foster youth who've been in multiple placements, we're causing more attachment challenges for kids. So like you can see, I have a lot of spinning plates because no two stories are the same. I work with kids that have been in two homes, or not, foster homes, or in one home. I was in one home for 6.5 years before I was adopted. So,
and were you adopted by the same home or by a different home?
A different home.
Oh, really? Interesting. So you're somewhere there's so much unknown what happens. Are there any numbers, like, in adoption and in foster care? Are there any numbers how many of these youth end up, with addiction, mental health issues, end up in, or what's the ratio?
Yeah.
Do you know
So
any?
Adoptees are 4 more times likely to have an addiction or substance use disorder. And they represent 14% in residential treatment centers for addiction and recovery. 14%, that's a high percentage. And it starts in adolescence, because adolescence is where they start really experiencing this if they don't know what happened to their birth family. It's a genealogical bewilderment. And 70% of inmates in our prison system came from the foster care system. 70%. 70%.
70.
70 have experienced foster care.
That's a crazy number.
It is crazy. So we are dealing with people who have a lot of unresolved primal wounds. The unacknowledgement, it's considered disenfranchised grief. We are grieving inside. So not only are we struggling with the attachment, trusting attachment, but we're also grieving the loss of our genetic origins and who we are and where we come from. So that's why I do a lot of open adoption work and reunion work, because we do need to go back and repair and reconcile in our bodies, in our cellular memory, which is what you were asking about, Darren, before. We download this experience in our bodies. Yeah. In our psyches, in our bodies. And unless someone's pointing out, you're experiencing this experience, this is real. And there are 7 core vulnerabilities, issues that I can share. If you're not aware, you will be reenacting them, acting them out, and end up using a substance or doing other compulsive behaviors to repress and suppress this pain that you're not understanding is in there.
And it's an experience, it's a traumatic experience that, like, that individual wasn't there consciously. They weren't there to interpret. Like, it's very much a cellular, biological event that undermines their perspectives, their trust, their ability to develop esteem in certain ways, I'm sure. I mean, that's heavy. And And is this number like growing? I mean, you're in the United States. You know, is this like?
Well, we are 1%. So adoptees are 1% of the population. There are 7 million adoptees today. I don't want to get into any politics about abortion, but the domestic supply of infants that will come out of that situation, there will be more children who have experienced adoption, and there will be more mental health challenges. The rates will increase. We have 7 core issues. We experience loss from the beginning. We experience rejection from the beginning, because this is what happens for kids. They go, why would any mom give away her baby? There must have been something wrong with me. Yeah. Children question, and I questioned that for years.
It's the only answer.
How does a child explain to themselves why I'm no longer with my birth family? Children are egocentric, and that's why we're talking about the primal wound. These wounds happen in childhood when the brain doesn't have the capacity to make sense by themselves what has happened to them. So they will make up stories if no one is pointing out. And I will tell kids all the time, it wasn't about you that your mother at that time could not parent any baby born on your birthday. It was about the circumstances in her life at that time. But you need to have cognitive capacity to have that objectivity, right?
Well, and even that being said, the truth still that they were abandoned. They were not wanted for whatever reason that's understandable or that someone can accept. It's a
separation trauma.
Yeah.
It is a trauma.
So how does one overcome that?
Yes.
Because there's separation trauma here, you know, not all relationships, but a lot of relationships eventually have separation issues. Not to say one is the same as the other. So what are some techniques? Maybe someone's listening right now and they're just in their early years of coming to cope, you know, with you know, the story of being given up for adoption or foster care. What are some of the ways to get over it?
Well, so the best treatments are EMDR. EMDR is very effective in creating resources for yourself to go back and think about that day that you were separated from your mother, and creating a resource, someone who's there supporting you through this experience. You're rewiring the experience so it's not considered an abandonment. You're making sense of the experience, and you're doing bilateral stimulation, which is what EMDR is. Something that I'm developing is a grief exercise. It's a visualization. It's called Archaeology of You, the journey to your primal wound. Because what happens is we get stuck. And the stuckness is, it feels like an abyss. And this is what causes substance use. We're trying to fill that hole, right? But the hole doesn't get filled because there's no bottom. There's no finite place to contain it. So the journey to the primal wound is actually, and I do this with all of my adult adoptee clients, we go into, we open a big door that's in the ground, and we actually go into our primal wound and we redecorate. We have a landing place. We go in there. We have a safe space in there where we can just rest and be, and not be scared of it, not repress it, not suppress it, be with it. And then we identify our losses. We grieve those losses, because grief is the core issue here. It's learning how to grieve and be with your loss and mourn, because adoptees, if you think about it, there's no wake, there's no funeral. It happened. And typically a lot of adoptive parents recognize their child's loss when their own parents die. And it's really fascinating, because they go, wow, my mother has passed you've been holding on to this grief your whole life. So we go into these passageways, and we identify, you have to identify the losses, do a grief inventory, and then we also talk to the parts of ourselves. So it's internal family systems work, which is really important. Understanding there's parts of you develop in order to survive a traumatic experience. And those parts can be good parts, healthy parts, or not healthy parts. And we want to have conversations with all of our parts, our nemesis, the part that continues to keep us down, stuck, angry, resentful, using, blaming others. And we have conversations with these parts. And then we learn how to integrate all of these parts so that we can recognize we are a whole person. We can acknowledge our grief, our losses, and we are good enough. We can value and see this experience not as a less than, it actually has enriched your life and it's made you into who you are. And let's pull the assets from this experience to inspire you to use them to your advantage, which is what I did. I said, you know what? I'm going to help others like me because I know there's a lot of them out there, and I'm going to work and figure out what is going to help us. And so a lot of my interventions, I wrote a book, a lot of interventions for parents, groundbreaking interventions. I'm always creating. I wrote my first children's book. What is adoption? What is foster care?
Oh, those are amazing. Can you hold those back up again? Oh, those are great. Perfect. And where can one get those books?
On Amazon.
On Amazon. So just Google your name and the title. So a question about your services. Are you just in person? Do you have to be where you are? Do you do anything virtually for anybody that may require some of your supports?
So this class I will be making live soon. So if you get on my email list, you can get a link and you can take this journey for yourself in your own, the privacy of your own home. Grieve your losses, make sense of what you've been through. I provide, because I'm in the state of California, I can only provide therapy to those here in California.
Okay.
California's huge. I do have a staff of 5 therapists, whom some of them have also been adopted, and there's an adoptive parent. And I train therapists to be adoption competent. That's why I've trained Department of Mental Health, DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services, to be adoption competent, because there's so much confusion. Why would a child who's separated at birth even remember what happened to them? They don't recognize it. So
that's one of the a stigma that must occur for their own individual. You know, why this can't be, you know, related to that. I wasn't even aware. You know, but there's so much more to that aspect of like you say, that connection through the womb and at birth. And I wonder if there's, you know, one stigma for, you know, an adopted parents themselves about, you know, protecting their adopted child from harm of the truth, from the fact that, you know, perhaps their mother didn't, you know, wasn't ready or wasn't able and gave them up, and, you know, keep them isolated and sheltered from that. When you say, you know, family reunification and revisiting, you know, those truths, like, I guess my question would be, like, to adopted parents or to foster care people that, like, you know, truly want to help, you know, a child, like what is that sort of best case scenario, like, for them to, you know, to provide the truth, when to, you know, offer like resources such as yourself at what point in that discussion, like what should people know before going into those situations?
So, I've had a YouTube channel for many years, but I didn't really do anything with it until the pandemic. And when the pandemic came, I couldn't really see as many people. So I put a lot of my trainings on there. So I have trainings on everything: open adoption, transracial adoption, when and what to tell your child at what age about their story of adoption or foster care, how to explain to a child mental illness, rape, addiction, if their parent has passed, death. There's so many pieces. So parents do want to go to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is called Genetically Speaking, because every time I heard the word genetic, like, I don't like my name, and it's kind of what I do. So I'm going to have fun with this and call it Genetically Speaking with my name, JEANETTE -itically speaking, about foster care, adoption, mental health. You do want to educate yourself, not be afraid, because we need our parents to join us in our loss and be able, and if they're triggered, if a parent's triggered, that's an indication that they need to process that on their own, because we need our parents to go, of course you're grieving. We understand. You've lost someone very important to you, and that's your birth mother. And we understand that loss. And I have convinced many families to go search out their child's birth mother, and I'm going to help facilitate, educate that birth mother why we need her to be in this child's life. I've had kids cry for years, every night before bed, where's my mommy? Where's my mommy? And they're already adopted. And parents are confused. And I would tell them, please understand, it's only going to help the child to know.
Like, no matter what the circumstance, even in the worst circumstances, or,
So of course, we always have to assess safety issues, right? If we have a mother who's still using and is an addict, she's not going to have a reunion with a 5-year-old. However, I've had 18, 19-year-olds go, I don't care.
Right.
I need to see her because I need to make sense and understand why I was adopted, because I've been so angry.
Yeah.
And it helps them go, oh, now I understand my mother's an addict. I couldn't have lived with her. I've had a better life, thank God, being adopted. And so it really helps reconcile all these questions for an adoptee. But every case is different. Every child.
There's so much to unpack here. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it's just there's so much, because there's a world out there where mother's still using, she has a right to raise her child, and taking a child away from their birth mother causes more harm. And then what do you do if you want to give your child up for adoption, and you have that guilt and shame, giving that child up, and then you might not give that child up. So there's so many different streams of support that needs to be out there. And I don't thanks for doing what you do, because to be honest with you, we've been doing this show for now 8 years, and it's really not been a conversation, and it's such a big piece, especially maybe because Darren's a dad, so it's something that needs to be talked about, especially in the world of addiction, supporting young mothers and supporting that transition if there is an adoption, and supporting the idea of how do you, because you think adoption, mom's gone, but really mom's not gone.
She's what's called the ghost kingdom. She's in the ghost kingdom, and she's always with that child, always. Yeah. And so last but not least, support groups for adoptees. So celiacenter.org is where we have all of our Zoom support groups. Adoptees need to be with other adoptees. Adoptive parents need to be with other adoptive parents. And we also need to come together, which is called the Adoption Constellation. We're all like interstellar stars connected in this constellation: adoptive parents, foster youth, adoptees, birth parents. So we have a support group called the Constellation, where we all come together. We put down our arms. We have empathy and compassion. We're all struggling with the grief and the loss and the rejection. We're all impacted, and it's a lifelong process. So let's support each other. Let's stop running away from each other. There's a lot of negative stigmas, not only about adoptees and foster youth, but birth parents. Oh, they're all addicts. Excuse me. No, they're not.
That's right.
There are a lot of mothers who don't have the right support, education. They may have addiction, but there's what drove that addiction? Mm-hmm. The lack of resources in their life, the lack of support that they didn't get in their childhood. So there's so many. So let's just pull back, have compassion. Everybody's going through something. And I'll say last but not least is the birth family created the life, the foster and adoptive family sustain that life, and both together affirm that child's life.
That's beautiful.
This is about.
That is beautiful. I really appreciate. This is great information. We need this to support women in recovery and people that are in recovery that have been adopted. The website is yoffetherapy.com. You can get all the information there. That's spelled YOFFE therapy.com. And are your children's books on here too?
Yes. So
awesome.
They're all, but if you go to JeanetteYoffe.com, then you can have a link to Yoffe Therapy or Celia Center, because they're two different things. JeanetteYoffe.com.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We're bringing in our second half guest, and you know what? Thanks for doing the work that you're doing and bringing this to light. I really appreciate you being on the show. So thanks for your time, and good luck with all your projects. Thank you. Yeah, you're listening to Talk Recovery Radio, coming to you live every Thursday, noon to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe, and you can follow us on all of your favorite streams. Bye, Jeanette.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Yes. Hello, Rebecca is on the show now.
Hi.
Hello, Rebecca. Hi, Talk Recovery Radio. And we like to bring personal stories back by our viewers and listeners' demand. We got asked a bunch of times, hey, where's your personal stories? Because we've got lots of experts on the show, but let's have some experts with lived experience. So welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you, Giuseppe. And thank you,
Yes. Yes. Hello. Yes. Well, I was talking to Rebecca actually yesterday. We're friends outside of the world of famous radio and Facebook live streams. And it was exciting to know that you were coming on the show. So Jordan books all of our guests. So a shout out to Jordan Bowman for booking our guests. Thanks, Jordan. So Rebecca, I know that you come from the world of occupational health interventions, and everybody has this idea of the downtown east side drug user, and all addicts live down there. That's where we end up, but that's not your story. So do you mind sharing with us a little bit on how you ended up becoming a guest on Talk Recovery Radio?
I would love to. Thank you. Yeah. So I've always had super, super big feelings. I remember when, this is kind of funny. I remember when the Pope came to town and he was at BC Place, and there was this, there were all these people that were like opening for him. And then there was like, when he was about to come up, there was this foofara and everyone was just like, ooh. And I started crying, just feeling, I didn't really have any feelings either way about the Pope, but feeling what was going on around me, it just filled me right up and overwhelmed me. And I started crying, and my dad was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I don't know. And I don't know, maybe he thought I was really jazzed on the Pope or something like this. But since that time, I've always picked up on a lot of energies of stuff that is going around. And I've always felt really, really big feelings, like I'm not happy, I'm overjoyed, and I'm not sad, I'm like despondent, and I can't get out of it. And when I was 14, I tried drugs for the first time with a friend. It was right after my parents had split up, and those produced major feelings in me. And coupled with those huge feelings, I also didn't have the vocabulary to talk to someone and to say, I feel weird, I feel strange, I don't know what's going on inside of me. Is this normal? Does anybody else feel this way? And so when this friend introduced me to this world, I felt calm. I felt like I could handle everything. I felt like all those big feelings that I had could just be put away. And I liked it. I liked that I felt the way that I perceived everyone else felt, that they were calm and they were cool, because I was not cool at that time. At that time.
Now you are, definitely.
A little bit cooler now. So anyway, so that drug led into another, that led into another, and I happened to be at an age where the rave scene was really like swinging by the time I got there. And so the drugs changed from things that were smoked to things that were swallowed and things that were snorted. And can I say that on here?
You can say whatever you want. Yeah, it's your story. You can say whatever you want. Just no swear words.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you go. Perfect. So now you end up in a place where, you know, we're not going to talk about your work, but I'm not sure where that noise is coming from. Do you hear that?
I do.
You do? I have no idea what's going on with my computer. Like none whatsoever. Sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm just getting a weird sound. Darren, I'm going to go on mute.
Okay. Oh, it's still going.
Let me see if I mute it. Is it me?
Yeah. It's you. Yeah, it's you. Rebecca's,
let me, my screen door, my door is open. Let me just see if that's it.
It's the landscapers. Oh, that's
I love
funny.
live radio. Yeah. It's I just always love saying that too. It's not me, it's you.
This is the conversation I just had before the show when Giuseppe asked how I was doing. I had to say the same thing last week, how I'm sitting in the hottest environment. Like I'm pouring sweat right now because I have to close all my windows and doors because every Thursday they do landscaping at the building across the street. So I have to punish myself for the show.
Oh,
but there we go.
You know,
you can't be blamed for having a door open, Rebecca.
Yeah, you're okay. You're okay. Yeah, I'm like, what is that noise? So this is such a strong issue for so many people. You have a job, you have a house, you have you're
car.
making it. You have a car. Yeah. So what's your problem?
So what's my problem, and why can't I just stop?
Yeah.
Why can't you just stop?
Why can't you just not even stop? Why can't you just use and go to bed and go to work? Like, I mean, like doing drugs is cool. Like, what's your problem?
Oh my gosh. I feel like in high school it was cool if you could, you know, rip it up and still write great papers and pass your tests and stuff. I balanced life for a little while, and then when I started to get high before going to work, when I started to leave events early so that I could get high, when I got really good at managing my money so that I made sure that I had, like, appearances were very important. Paying my rent, paying my bills, making sure that that's all taken care of, because I was petrified that my family would find out and would feel incredibly disappointed in me. Disappointment was the worst thing in the world. But it was when I finally gave it up. I had 3 years clean before, but I didn't get the powerlessness piece. I thought, okay, I've been clean for 3 years. I can use, and it'll be fine because I've written the steps and I can just stop. And I didn't understand that piece, that when I start, that there's this switch that flips in my brain and I will stop at nothing. And I want to hide away. I don't want to tell anybody about it, but I have, I'm super blessed that I've got a lot of good friends, including one of whom who it happens to be a drug and alcohol counselor. And when she said, you know, we need to, she said, I see you in meetings and you're like knitting furiously and you're trying to make it through and you're literally white knuckling it and you're struggling. And I want you to know that I see you and that it's okay and that you need some help. And I felt like to need help, to be reliant upon somebody else was worse than somebody feeling disappointed in me. It meant that I sucked and I had failed at life and that I would never make anything of myself. And it was just embarrassment after embarrassment. And then I realized
it's this is so strong because, you know, we started the show talking about the overdose crisis and everyone's trying to sort out the overdose crisis, but like like the last couple of minutes of what you're talking about, like really that's it. Like we need to raise awareness that it's okay to ask for help, that it's okay to not be able to handle your drugs, and to be honest about that, that it's okay to feel, you know, the way you're feeling, but you can overcome that. And rather than, you know, what we're actually doing to help stop the overdose crisis, like because you're the construction worker that is too good to go to rehab, that doesn't want to go to rehab because he won't get paid the same amount of money if he stays on the job high, because he gets full pay. He's not going to go on disability and go to rehab. He gets a quarter of his pay. Like he needs that money. Like, I mean, there's so many layers here that no one's tackling, but like there's no intervention sitting down with you, Rebecca, that I know of in the healthcare system that's going to get you through that, other than one addict helping another addict.
Absolutely. Somebody,
you know what I mean?
Who absolutely, like my friend who was the drug and alcohol counselor, she's got 14 years clean now herself, and she could speak from a place of complete understanding. And she could explain to my parents, who had no inkling as to what this was like. And they too said, like, why can't you just stop?
Or here's a pill, take this pill, you know, take it once a day. And then when you get dressed, you take the one in the morning to wake up, and then in the afternoon to get rid of the jitters. And then, you know what I mean? Just take 3 pills a day now.
Absolutely. And it was in hearing her story and hearing other stories when I started going to meetings, to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, that their story was my story. Like it happened at a different location with different people, but the basis of fear, the basis of loneliness, the basis of like anxiety. And I felt so heard and so seen at these meetings and with other addicts who had been where I was and had made it through. And God, I love this program. Like the fact that it's like a free program, but it's priceless at the same time. Like if you had to pay for it, you couldn't pay enough for it.
And that's the same program that you knitted furiously in, right? and just biding time and just white knuckling, as you say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had these conversations because, you know, doctors, you know, sometimes their best effort is go to a meeting. You got to go to an AA meeting. You got to go to a 12-step meeting. You got to go to a meeting. And okay. And I went and I was horrified, and there was too many people, and people looked at me, and then I was terrified that someone would ask me to talk. Yeah. And then someone wanted to talk to me afterwards, and I just wanted to get out of there. And so forever, my experience was, how is a meeting going to help? Like because I lacked the experience, I lacked an actual conversation. And you described that, like, do you know what the shift was? What information that you lacked in the beginning? Was it a spiritual readiness? Did you need more consequences? Do you know?
That's a really good question, Darren.
A bit deep, I know.
I think I needed a bottom that I hadn't found before. I needed the spiritual readiness, like recognizing that I could lose my career. I was incredibly lucky that I told on myself to my work and said, this is what, like with my HR department, and let them know what was happening. And I don't think I'd eaten for days. Like I was so petrified at what would happen, this thing that I'd worked so hard for, that I could be so stupid as to lose it. Yes. And what was incredible is that they were super, super supportive and helped me all the way through. And that's something I thought I would be.
Amazing, eh? Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
My next question was, is the risk of exposure ever, you know, the consequence, is that ever greater than not change, you know, than just sitting still and saying nothing? Because you described your dad or your parents' disappointment. And I had that same experience that kept me quiet in regards to their support and resources for many things over many years. Yeah. And I'm sure he would have been upset and concerned and maybe even angry, as a natural, loving person would be in your life, but would never not support.
Absolutely. Would never not help.
Right. So
would never not help. Yeah.
And so work isn't going to can you and shoo you out. And it, so at the end of the day, is there ever a true consequence of exposure, of transparency, of a little bit of truth?
I think only the one that your awful brain creates for you. Mm-hmm. I think that coming clean, in my experience of like 8.5 years, and then 3 years before that, I've never heard a story, and I've never heard of anyone who has chastised or been unkind to somebody who has come forth and said, I've got a problem, I need some help.
Right. And
that moment before. Sorry?
May have been given a probationary period through work.
Of course.
Or time off. Or maybe couldn't see their child for a certain period of time. Or, but at the end of the day, it's a necessary sort of protective solution, you know, to provide some help for these individuals. But yet we stick on that. But she might take my daughter away, but I might lose my job, but you know, my dad might kick me out. And so I would assume, for me and my own, it's always been a lie that I tell myself.
Yes. The
truth is I'm just scared. Even in the perfect environment of a meeting where somebody, there's no reason they're coming to me and having a conversation and sharing of themselves, I will still come up with an excuse or a reason, you know, to not reach out or say I need some help, or hey, thanks for coming over here, I'm really struggling. And how many people we lose because of that. And I think I just wanted, through your story here, to make that voice, you know, say that there's never a bad time in life just to reach your hand out. Eh?
Never. It is. And it's,
but unfortunately, you know, people just have a difficult time getting there. So hopefully policies change where there's more awareness to substantiate getting help, support getting help, rather than just support your drug use. And I think that's where we're at in Vancouver right now. We started the show earlier. Please replay if you didn't get a chance to hear us at the beginning about the Alberta model and how they're reducing overdoses, and they've gone down 40% in overdose rates using recovery-oriented systems of care. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio, and you know what? We get to talk to some amazing people. We got Rebecca on air right now, who's talking about her personal story of overcoming addiction. And she, I wouldn't say fortunate, she just ended up having the opportunity to get well before she lost her home and lost her job and all that kind of stuff. And we call it social capital, community capital, human capital. She had enough of that to be able to get help, and her, thank God, her workplace helped her as well. I wanted to spend the last couple of minutes of the show to talk about some stuff that you're working on. So, you know, I know that you are part of, you know, you didn't just find recovery and go to work. You found recovery and now you're part of recovery. And it's, I like to call it, you're in a community, and so you're working on two big community projects. One I'm really involved in, the other one I support. So what's going on with this race thing that's happening?
Wow. Many of us have heard of the Amazing Race. Well, we are putting on the Amazing Race. The NA Amazing Race, and it's based on the show, but instead of traveling to different countries, we travel around New Westminster. It's a fundraiser for the PNW CNA number 47, which is the Pacific Northwest Conference of Narcotics Anonymous. That's going to be held, I believe, in New West in 2024, in, I believe, October of 2024. And it's a super, super fun activity. It's going to be held on September the 3rd, where we will all meet at 10 a.m. at Moody Park. You will receive instructions. If you don't have a team but you want to be put on a team, just show up and we will put you on a team. It is $25 per person, or a team for 100. And you will wend your way through New West, solving puzzles and following clues to the final destination, where there will be a hot dog and hamburger barbecue and a couple of speakers and prizes. And it's a great way to continue to build that community, to have a great time, and to see how you can have fun in recovery. I had no idea fun in recovery was a thing. I thought you had to be, ripped for that to happen. But
yeah. So that's on September 3rd. The important time is 10 a.m. Be at Moody Park if you want to be in the race. And if you just want to do the barbecue.
If you just want to do the barbecue, we will send you the location through email. The best thing to do, that's a really good question.
We are good at what we do.
If you just want to do the barbecue, it's $15, and that is for a hot dog, a hamburger, a drink, and a bag of chips, and a lot of really great fellowship and a lot of fun. And
the question of the hour, what do you win if you win? Because
you win an actual medal, like an actual medal that says the first annual Amazing Race 2022. You and your team members do, and it's made of metal as well, plus bragging rights. And show up in a costume, and that's how we can take time off of your final time, because you want the lowest time.
Look at all this little secret stuff there. So that's the Amazing Race. Yeah. And you know what, you're a volunteer extraordinaire. Thank you very much. This was 2019. We're going to duplicate this in 2022 on September 10th. Recovery Day BC is coming up, and Rebecca's been part of Recovery Day for a long time. That's how we built our friendship. And I'm super grateful. And you're going to be doing what for Recovery Day?
I will be supporting the Kids Zone area. So if you like to color, if you like to play with toys, if you like bubbles or your face painted, and we will be right beside the kids stage, where there's a ton of great performers, including one of my favorites from childhood, Fred Penner.
Yes.
Sandwiches are beautiful. Sandwiches are fine. I'm so excited to see all of the adults that are there singing along.
It's going to be pretty, it's going to be amazing. So if you want to volunteer for Recovery Day, private message our show. If you know Rebecca and you're watching this, let Rebecca know. We need lots of help. And Rebecca is the zone lead, the official title, zone lead of the Kids Zone, which is its own zone. Because people in recovery have families, and families can learn about other services out there in case they have a loved one that needs some help. So there's about 200 information booths and vendors at Recovery Day this year, which is a record. So it's going to be pretty big, September 10th in New Westminster. So we're on the hour. It's time to go. Rebecca, thanks for being on the show. And one more question: how do you get tickets for the Amazing Race? Is there a website?
Oh, there is. We do have an Eventbrite that I can send you the Eventbrite link.
Okay, so find us. We'll send it to you. We'll post it on our Facebook page as well. Darren, wonderful to see you. I'm sorry that your windows are closed and you're in the heat. You're okay to have a sip of water here and there if you want. I've got the air conditioner right here, so I'm actually cold. Okay, Rebecca, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching.
A show like this is worth it.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, Stephanie and Darren, for having me on.
Take care. We'll see you all next Thursday, and take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, love. Bye.
Bye.